Today we're going to be looking at the periodic table of elements, and we're going to be looking at an element box and how we use the information in this element box to create an atomic model. And we're going to be looking specifically at the carbon model. So in your notes, if we wanted to, we could let's use it as a title as the element box. And you're going to write down the same things that I write. So this is an element box, and really we're looking at how do I use an element box to create an atomic model. So I want you to take your paper and you're going to draw a large rectangle. I'm going to do mine freehand. Feel free to pause this at any point. And if you want to get a ruler or use the side of a book, you can. So you're going to make one large rectangle, and I'm going to use a sticky note for mine, and I'm going to make a smaller box inside the rectangle. And we're going to be doing the carbon atom, and here's the information that I would get off of the periodic table. So I'm going to write these things down. So here I have a large capital C. It's called carbon. I have a number 6 here. I also have a number 12.01. And it doesn't show here, but if I were to look here on the periodic table, carbon is found under group 14. So back on my notes, I'm going to, on the top here, I'm going to write group 14. And I'm going to explain what each of these things mean. Okay, let's start down here at the bottom, where it says, oops, the element name. So down here, so you're going to just do down here, do a little arrow. This is the element name. And I know from 7th grade you have all heard of carbon. This is the element symbol. The element symbol is 1 or 2 letters, and it must start with a capital letter. So for example, you'd have H for hydrogen, but He would be helium. C is for carbon, but Na is sodium. Okay, up here, this is the atomic number. I'm going to do a hashtag. The atomic number tells the number of protons. Which happens to be the same as number of electrons. This number that has a decimal, let me underline this, underline my element symbol. So this is the atomic mass. The atomic mass is the number of protons, positive, and neutrons, which have no charge, that is 0, together. So this atomic mass is going to be in a decimal. So you want to make sure that you round the mass. So if the atomic mass is the number of protons and the number of neutrons, and I know my number of protons because it's my atomic number, if I wanted to figure out my neutrons, I could subtract the atomic number. I could just subtract my protons from this number, and it would tell me how many neutrons I have. We'll get to that more later. So up here, this is the group number. This tells the number of valence electrons. Now, you can only have your electrons only go 1 through 8. So if there's a 1 in front of your number, if your group number is 14, you just cover the 1, and it means you would have 4 valence electrons. And then everything else is the inner electrons. So for this one, so group 14 equals 4 valence electrons. Group 16 would be 6 valence electrons. Okay, so let's say that we wanted to draw a carbon model. So we're going to do, when we make our models, we're going to go an inside circle, it's going to be our nucleus, and our outside circle. A little lopsided. So based on this, okay, I'm going to use that to decide how many protons I have, how many neutrons I have, how many electrons, and of those, the electrons, I'm going to have 2 different kinds. I'm going to have a valence electron, and I'm going to have an inner electron. My protons, remember, are positive. My neutrons have no charge. And my electrons have a negative charge. Okay, so if I look up here at my carbon atom, my carbon element box, so the atomic number tells the number of protons. And that's the same as the number of electrons. So this number here is going to give me 2 things. The protons, and I'm going to go in through with my notes. I'm going to and electrons. And then this one is neutrons. So my protons and electrons are my atomic number. So down here, my protons are 6, and my electrons are 6. Okay, so up here, my atomic mass is the number of protons and neutrons. Well, that number is 12.01, so I'd round it. Since if this is 5 or less, it's less than 5, it goes down. So I have 12 here. So 12, I have 12 in my mass. I subtract my protons, which is 6, so I would have 6 neutrons. So if the protons and neutrons, if those two numbers together give me my mass, I subtract the number from the mass to find how many neutrons fast. So 12, take away 6, gives me 6. We'll practice more. So now I've got to figure out how many valence electrons and how many inner electrons. So let's go back up here. So this group number, it tells me how many valence electrons I have. And there's only 8. The most you can have is 8. So if I have 14, I'm just going to cover the 1. So that means I have 4 valence electrons. So I have 4 valence electrons. Well, if I have 6 total, and 4 of them are valence, whatever's left over is going to be my inner. So 6 take away 4, I have 2 inner. So now let's draw it. Protons, neutrons in the middle. So my protons, I'm not going to do the 6 plus signs. I'm just going to go 6 protons positive. Protons, neutrons in the middle. That makes up my mass. So I have 6 neutrons with no charge. My valence electrons, those are on the very outside. I'm just going to do 4 valence electrons. Those are out there. And then this part in here, call it my cloud, my electron cloud, I have 2 electrons there. So that's how you use the information from an element box to create an atomic model.